Okay, now we're going to quickly move over to, to the EV2 client to see how we enroll an MC800 system within Omni. So if you have selected the MC800 extension when installing Eiris, then you will see under this branch in the setup tree titled MC800. Now, if you go into it and you go to the settings, it will ask you to select a TCP interface. Well, we haven't defined one yet, so let's go down to our serial interfaces and add by type a TCP gateway. And we're going to call it the MediLog driver XML server, we'll call it, right? And we're going to give it an IP address. Let's say, and a port, whatever the port is defined for the MediLog driver. Now, it could be on the same server or it could be on a remote server. If it's on a remote server, you have to, there are a few more steps in setting up the driver on the MediLog side to support the security that was added to the remote connection. But typically, you would probably have the Eiris and the MediLog running on the same machine. Right, but in any case, if it's on the same machine, you would put the IP address here in the port regardless. Right, now that we've defined, then we can now select that within this object, the MC800 communication object. Okay. Once we've done that, then we can add an MC800 device. An MC800 device is simply a node within the MC800 network. So that would be a room electronic typically. It's a LAN node, right? So let's call this room 101, right? It's already in use. I've used that already. Okay, room 102. All right, now I've called it room 102, and I have to give it a subnet node because that's the unique identifier for each node within the MC800 system. We have a subnet of, let's say, 2 and a node of 102. And if I need to send Omni events to the MC800, I have to use outputs. Okay, then it will define outputs, which will then be addressable by Eiris. I'm sorry, by Omni. So here I've created my object. I've gotten inputs. These inputs are the objects on which the events, the inbound events from the MC800 into Omni are applied. So, for example, input 1 would be patient call, input 2 would be emergency, and input 3 would be nurse presence. And I can drag them onto our maps. All right, let's look for, I can do all these, oops. It would actually be better to add them using the web client. So now I've got these 3 inputs located on the map. So each time, if I want to display on an Omni client these MC800 events that I get from the MediLog, then it will flash that room at that location where that icon is. Now, that's with regards to inputs. That is the functionality that existed in versions prior to 5.0.10, where we got the events. At this point, let me just quickly go and show you this MC800. Let's delete that. Let's define a new one for you. We're going to define a trouble, even though it's not really a trouble, but rather a just a third-party event. So we're going to call it MC800 events. And we'll leave the message as the default. Inputs, we're going to select all of the inputs, which include these. Let's do that just in case. And let's filter our event types on MC800. So now we've got, as you could probably recognize if you are an MC800 user in the past, then you could see these are the types of messages that we would get from MediLog. And I'm going to just add patient call here. So this alert is going to trigger when it gets a patient call from the MC800, right? And I'm going to close on receiving opposite event. So when it gets the restore, so let's say you get a nurse presence, arrives in the room, then that patient call will get, and we get the patient call restore, it's going to clear the call in Eiris as well, in Omni as well. On the output screen, I tell it which clients to send it to. And using the scheduler, I can say, okay, this alert will apply during certain hours of the day. And then I could do the same event at different hours so that I can send it to different clients at those times. So we can schedule our alerts as well. Big benefit of Omni, right? Let's just get rid of the schedule right now. So now I've got my alerts, and it's going to trigger the, it's going to flash the room indicated by the icon that we dragged on for that room. So it'll flash the 102, room 102 icon when it gets the patient call. I can have another icon indicating that a nurse presence, let's say a green one, that flashes when the nurse is present there. Now, what are the outputs for? The outputs are for if I have, let's say, an attack alarm, right? So if I have, let's say, an attack on staff alert, then I can send these outputs directly to specific rooms. And then if I select this and the alert is triggered, it will send that XML to line 1 in room 102. When I'm done here, I'm going to explain to you how you configure what line 1 really means. Right? Alternatively, I can use what's called our local indicator, which is probably more useful. So I have my local indicator outputs. I can define as many of these objects as I want. I select, okay, on attack on staff, for this room 101, I want to select this output. But, okay, and I'm going to add that selection. But for Ranana, I want to use this room, this output. Actually, to better demonstrate this, let's clear, hold on. Let's clear that. Remove selected output. That's what I needed. Now I'm going to add another room. And we're going to call it room 103. Right, and let's go in our readers, instead of calling it Ranana, we're going to call it room 103 dot. That indicates that it's an Omni location. So now when I go into my local indicator, right, for room 103, I'm going to select, I'm sorry, I added room 103, but I didn't set it up with the proper and use outputs. There we go, room 103, output 123. So then when I go to the local indicator, room 103, I'm going to associate that with, let's say, 103 output 1. Right, add it. So now I have the room 101 in the Omni location is sent to room 102 output 1 to the line of the MediLog. And if we get the alert at this location, it's going to send it to MediLog room 103 output 1. Now, how do I define what output 1 means within the MediLog system? So for that, I need to go to my Omni INI file. And as you can see, under MC800 section, I'm telling it that I want to use 4 outputs, and that's why you've seen that it created 4 outputs for each room, for each panel, right? MC800 node. And I had what the CNR value will be embedded in that XML for this output. So in output 1, the CNR value will be 1. Output 2, the CNR, I can change that. I can set that if I send to output 2, it'll have CNR level value 12 or something else. So that way you're able to, based on how you program your MC800 electronics, as far as what line does what, each one of those is going to have a CNR, right? And you're going to have to get that from the report within the MediLog, and then plug that in here to make sure that Omni sends the correct CNR for that event, right? So that's how we map out between the Omni locations and the MC800 lines, right? So here we have room, and along here you're going to get all the list of the various associations. And we've done that recently at a site where we have approximately 600 of these assignments mapped out. So that basically is how we program the Eiris to support the MC800 interface. So we reviewed a little bit about the features and benefits of integrating the Omni software with your MC800 system, and we demonstrated a little bit how to set it up. I'm sorry, I'm not showing you a live system. I don't have any hardwired electronics, MC800 electronics currently installed here, but I think you got the gist of it. And that's it for today. Feel free to contact me if you have any other questions. Bye-bye.